Now, without any further delay, coming to tonight's session on the 4 stories that help you transform into a product leader. Let me give an introduction to a very distinguished and eminent speaker of tonight, Shobhit Chugh. Shobhit is a product manager, a coach, and a leader. He is the founder of Intentional Product Manager, where he has coached hundreds of product managers. He coaches product managers on how to have the impact they desire on the world, their teams, and their careers by purposefully redesigning how they approach their daily activities. Shobhit is also the product manager for Crashlytics, the world's most popular mobile app crash reporter. His previous adventures include product management at startups like Tamer, High Start Group, now Vivo, and Lattice Engines. He's a management consultant at McKinsey, co-founded Adaptly, acquired by Accenture now, and headed the engineer and sales team at Manhattan Associates. A very warm welcome to you, Shobhit. We are absolutely thrilled to have you here with us tonight. Handing the session over to you now.
Thank you. Really excited to be here. Looking at all your list of distinguished speakers make me feel quite indistinguished. I don't know if that's a word, but anyway, I'll do the best I can today. Let's get you started. I'll go through the awkward experience of sharing my screen and failing to share it and do that again. So just give me a minute while I fail a couple of times. Oh, look at that. I didn't fail. So that's
the
good.
First attempt was a hit.
Yeah, awesome. So very excited to be here. And as Shama mentioned, day job is I work as a product manager at Google, which is a lot of fun. And then my passion has been coaching PMs, helping them get to the next level through intentional product managers. So everyone definitely come connect with me on LinkedIn. I try to post pretty often, mostly crap, but some good things also come out occasionally. So today's topic is the 4 stories you must master as a product manager. And really the context here is that I was having this conversation with one of the people that I was coaching, and as we spoke, I asked her, hey, so what exactly do you produce? Like, how are you adding value to your company? And she was like, nothing I do is directly valuable. And I was like, you're exactly right. Now, here's what I mean. So look, as product managers, we are writing PREs, we are building the roadmap, understanding customers. None of it directly ships to the customers, right? Everything that ultimately ships is done by someone else. The designers, the UX team is coming up with the screens. The engineering team is writing the code, building the software, supporting it. You have your support team that's frontline supporting the customers. All those things are happening by the actions of other people, which means that everything you contribute to your company, it comes from the actions of other people. And what does that mean? That means in order to get anything done, your only power is influence. Let me repeat, your only power is influence. Without that, you're purely someone who's getting a paycheck and not contributing anything. So yeah, a little bit of stretching here, but that perspective really helped me look at things differently, because I think it's a very well-established fact that one of the best way to really have influence is to build up your brand, right? So when I have, so let's say me doing this talk, right? So I come in and I say, hey, everyone, tomorrow's my first day in product management. And so I'm going to tell you all about the stories you must tell as a product leader. And I'm sure the registrations for the webinar will be like 3 people who are like, who the hell is this person? We just want to check it out, and nobody will show up, right? No branding. The person has absolutely no credibility in your mind. And even though they might have the exact same presentation, you'll take away nothing from it. But then I come in and I add a little bit of credibility. Google coached a few hundred PMs, so probably have learned something about it. And I present the same content. Very different impact on people. People take notes. Hopefully you're taking notes. Don't write down my jokes, just all the good stuff. Hopefully you're taking notes and paying attention and not checking email. No one doing that. That's great. So the whole thing is that it was because of the brand. It was a reputation you had built up because, I had some brand supporting me, or I had interacted with you in some way and built up this reputation over time, right? So the secret is to influence, it might be partly the strengths of the argument you're presenting right now, but it's also all the actions you've done so far that have led to this very moment. Now, here's the secret. People don't remember all the interactions with you. They don't. What they remember are just, okay, this is what a brand is. I skipped that completely. That's okay. So what they remember, I'm going to skip this stuff. Yeah. So what they remember is like a roller coaster. You remember the high points, when you went up and you were looking down and you were upside down, and then you went all the way down, and you sort of remember the low point. So it's all about people remembering your high points and your low points. And now, in order to help you build the brand that you want to build, I'm going to talk through 4 stories that, in my mind, cover the high points and low points for most people's careers. They come often frequently enough, such that just by shaping those stories, you start to build up your personal brand in people's minds. You then have the influence you want, and then you can have outstanding impact. And now's where my out of sequence slides come in. So the thing I want to talk about first of all is just be very clear on what your brand is. What do you want your brand to be? And so this is what my brand is always. I take very seriously 3 things: candid, inspiring, and strategic. When I'm a product manager, I want you to know that I am going to speak the truth. I'm not going to hide. I'm going to be upfront, and I'm going to challenge you. And, that might be unpleasant at some times, but you know always to expect that from me. So you never have to dig around to find the hidden meaning. It's right there in front of you. I want to be inspiring. I don't want to be someone who just comes and writes out the stories and you get them done and you get a paycheck. No, we are doing something bigger than that. And I'm going to stand behind that. And last but not least, I want to be known as someone who's strategic, which means that rather than trying to, solve the short-term problem, I'm going to try to solve something for the long term. So those are the brand words and these stories that I keep in mind day after day, so that I'm most strategic. So, or I'm more intentional about my brand. So with that, let's talk about the 4 stories, the main content of today's presentation. So the 4 stories that you must master, these are the things that happen often enough in your career, and they are the high points and low points, such that if you start to master them, you're already working so much more in the favor of your brand. And I'm going to walk you through step by step on what you should think about to master these stories. So the 4 stories are, first, let's begin with the high points. Tell me about yourself. When you're meeting someone for the first time, when you're interviewing, there's always this first question. So, why don't you tell me a bit about yourself? And that could be a high point, or that could be a low point. And I'll talk to you about how to make it a high point. Then the product update. What have you already achieved? People do this day in and day out, and very, very much without a sense of what's the kind of brand they're establishing. And so that becomes a low point. And then there are things that have the potential of being low points. And for most people, it will be a low point, but you can actually shape it to be a high point. And so these things are cases where you screw up, where you genuinely were at fault, and now you have to admit to it. So that's one story we'll talk through. And the last one, I don't know how many of you are already practicing PMs, but how many times do you hear from some stakeholder, somebody, that, why don't we just do this feature now? Like, I don't understand why we would wait. Why not just get it done? What else could be more important? So another thing that has the potential of being a low point. So let's get going. So tell me about yourself. That's the first story. Now, I'll walk you through the story structure, but I work a lot with PMs who are looking for their next adventure, looking for their next job, looking for their first PM role. And this is the first place we begin. Your narrative. And here's a typical narrative I hear. And if any of you have that, you know you're doing something wrong. Okay. It is like, so I was born in 1985, and then I went to school, and then I went to engineering school, and then I worked as an engineer for 20 years. Um, and then, I thought, why not be more customer centric? And so that's where I asked someone if I could become a product manager, and they made me, and basically a life history repeated, right? A chronological series of everything that has happened so far. Um, Newsflash: nobody really cares what happens 20 years ago, right? They're in the here and now. What makes you who you are? What is unique about yourself? Why should they bother to look at you amongst the 50 candidates that have come in here? So what the structure I recommend is, first of all, a hook, something intriguing that draws the listener in. And don't worry, I'll give you examples. The story, the actual story that you want to tell, and then the call to action at the end. So this is actually a very commonly accepted framework in the digital marketing advertising world. So, when you think of you scrolling on Facebook, you're scrolling down, and then suddenly there's an ad that actually catches your attention. Now, there's two reasons for that. One, it has a picture that your eye goes through. Maybe it is, like a beautiful scenery on the beach and you're drawn to it. Maybe it's someone attractive. Maybe it's a cute cat, a bunch of different things. That's one reason. But the second reason often is a hook. It's just some statement at the beginning that is intriguing enough to force you to raise more. So force you to read more. So it's like sort of that additional curiosity hook that just catches onto you, and now you have to read what's next. So I'll give you an example, right? I'll give you my example. So this is what I wrote as my origin story, and there's different types of stories, but this is my story. So I want each product manager to realize their potential as a product leader. I want it because I went through a transformation like this while at my third startup job. So notice the open loop. The open loop here was because I went through a transformation like this while at my third job. I haven't told you that yet, but I have just opened the hook enough that most people at this point, they're like, ooh, what's the transformation? I really want to know the transformation. And by the way, this could be a lot better, but here's an example. And so then I actually go through the story, which is I went through a point in my career where I had become an order taker product manager instead of a leader, and had to build better habits to start to excel in my career. To become a leader, I had to win back my team's trust. But something got in the way. I was so overwhelmed with all the to-dos that I was never able to work on things that moved the needle. I came across overwhelmed, overworked, and just over. So this is the low point of my story. This is the obstacle. This is where the challenge. And by the way, if your story, you tell me about yourself, if it doesn't have any obstacle, it's not really interesting. Because how many times have you gone and seen a movie where, it was like, hey, there's a boy and girl. They're both rich, wealthy. They are great physique. Then they meet, they fall in love. Then the parents approve it. And then they get married, and then they have lots of kids, and the kids grow up, and everything's great. I mean, what a damn boring movie, right? Everything's good all the way. So what is the obstacle here? It can't be Shah Rukh Khan and Kajol without Amrish Puri as the angry dad. That doesn't just quite work. You never would have DDLJ. And so that's really an important part of your story. Doesn't mean use it all the time, but as you think of your overall narrative, that's what's important. And then, I won't go through everything, but then there's a turning point. There's a turning point where after a lot of struggle, you sort of figure it out. You sort of get past the initial obstacle. And there might be more obstacles, more turning points, but the way it ends is with the bigger picture. So, in my case, the turning point came where I realized that I had let my job run me rather than me running the job. And then it was a matter of building the habits that helped me surpass that. And then I realized that this applies to product managers every freaking where, which is why I started the intentional product manager. So that's where it ends. And by the way, this is not often the story I would tell to an employer. This is all about what I will tell about intentional product manager. But you could see how the same framework could be adapted to you telling a story about yourself. That point of struggle, the intrigue, that's really what drives the interesting piece. And this could be a high point because the thing is that people will remember stories. Like, humans are fine-tuned to remember, connect with stories. But if the same thing was, hey, I am the most accomplished person, I work at this company and blah, 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 you're just one of many. But when you open up and share your struggles and bring it back to how that made you where you are, that's what makes the story stand out. So I'm sure I'll get a lot of questions about this later on, and I'll be happy to answer that. But that's the first story. It's about telling me about yourself. And by the way, you use this day in and day out, even if you're not like somebody hasn't asked you, but you might be introducing yourself, or you might be doing something. You'll use some version of it. Very important to get the story nailed down. Okay, next one is product update, but let me just take a sip of water because it's important to stay hydrated. Okay, so product update. Product update is something that most PMs do weekly, monthly, and it's one of those tasks that just seems like, I just have to go provide another update. It's like the status updates from the days of the office or office space rather. So how do you make it more interesting? How do you make it pop? How do you make it such a way that people grab onto it? So the reason product updates fail, first of all, is because of 3 reasons. So the first reason product updates fail to happen well is this thing called the curse of knowledge, which is most of the time we are so steeped into the content. I struggle with all the time. So steeped into the content that we don't provide the appropriate level of context for the other person to really be able to follow us. You're like already in the weeds and you're using words like KYC and I don't know, KFC and something like that. And everyone's like, what is this person talking about? By the way, happens in interviews all the time, happens in product updates all the time. So that's the first issue. You know too much. The second one is that you share the territory and not the map. So the reason why, or on the left, is a map of the Tokyo subway system. On the right is a screenshot from a map of Tokyo. Which one of these is more accurate? Actually, the fact is that none of these are really accurate because they don't look almost anything like the exact territory, right? Tokyo is not a set of straight lines with numbers. Tokyo is not like these zigzags with grazing in top. These are all just representation of Tokyo for the purpose to which they're meant for. So by that, what I mean is if you are taking the subways, then all you care about is which stop do I need to get off at? Is there a train I need to change? Which direction do I need to change it in? In which case, the left map is the right thing. It's exactly what you need. But if you're walking around Tokyo, you need the right one with like more zooming features and directions and stuff like that. Very different purposes, very different maps. None of them are the true territory. But the problem is that for the different purposes, we don't often tailor our communication enough. The same status update given to people in the engineering team will not work when you're giving it to your VP of marketing. I mean, your VP of marketing probably cares about what are the 3 amazing features that are coming up soon? What do I need to set up to market them really well? How do I get a press moment or a tweetable moment out of those? So very different questions you're answering. So that's the second reason why communication fails. And the last reason why it fails is this simple concept called forward momentum. The core idea being that you can tell people exactly what has happened so far, what is the facts of the current situation, and then stop. And you don't tell them what you're doing next to fix the challenges, move it even forward, and you lose half your credibility. Half your credibility is gone just because you didn't tell them what's the next step, right? So what I recommend people follow the product update is this structure. So one is, before you do the product update, just know what impression you want them to leave with. Be very clear. I want them to feel inspired about where the product is going. I want my boss to feel that I have things under control, and by the way, I'm worthy of promotion to the next level. Just very clear on that statement. And then we'll get into what the actual update is, which is the so what, the what, and then the then what. I'll walk you through what these are. And then afterwards, do you have any questions for me? So the goal is all about what do you want to happen as a result of this conversation. Just knowing that intention itself helps you really tell that compelling story. Because if you have no intention, then nothing goes right. And then you go in with the synthesis. So synthesis is if they remember one thing, what it should be. And it's really about how does it impact them at the end of the day, right? So let's do a quick 30-second exercise. You do it in your own head, or in your, actually, let's do it on chat. Let's assume this article is something that will be published in a school newspaper, and the audience is students. Okay. What should be the headline for this? So I'll give everyone a minute or maybe 30 seconds. I'll wait for chat to see some answers flow in and see what we get. Yeah, screen sharing is still on. I don't see any answers yet. Make sure you have panelists and attendees selected when you send out the answers. Oh, the question is, what would be the headline for this article if it was being published in a school newspaper? And the audience is students. I see some answers coming in. Don't be shy. Yeah, I see a couple. Yeah, I see more coming in. Okay. Fun at Learn, teachers preparing, teachers conference, absolute teachers day out at Springfield, energy boost for teachers, child psychology for teachers to get around. Great tries, great tries. Absolutely. Well done. But there's one more thing, right? It's students. It's students is the audience. I mentioned that. Students is the audience. Do students ever care about what teaching or what learning? Oh yeah, somebody nailed it. Holiday for you. Day off from teachers. People are getting it now. Yes, exactly. School closed tomorrow. Or no teachers at school tomorrow, or substitute teachers at school tomorrow. Basically, the audience, the headline here is the so what? Does it mean for you as students? And it's simply time off, day off from teachers. Okay, y'all are getting it. So just wanted to bring up the point. This is actually a very classic journalism case where the headline's all about not the what, which is teachers going out for a day of learning. Who cares about that? It's that means that you are now free to do what you want in the school, or don't come to school, or something like that. Now, why do I bring this up? Because it shows up in product all the time, where somebody brings up, we've completed the infrastructure project 85%. And everyone's like, okay, is that good? Is that bad? I don't know. But then I've seen other people, other PMs represent the same story as, we are running ahead of schedule and we expect to be finished in March. So we'll have 1 month to do other things. Oh, that's exciting. Or we've already saved the company $20 million. Oh, that's exciting. So it's always the so what, that's the headline. And then you state your main 2 or 3 points that are relevant. So you begin with the headline, you give them 2 to 3 points, and then you end with the forward momentum, which is that, what are we doing next, or what you should do next. And very often this is all about things such as, hey, I'll give you an example. We found that the signups were lower than expected. Headline. There's 3 things that we found. More people came to the website, but a lower conversion rate happened, and blah, 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 something. But the forward moment, but if I left it there, people are like, oh, this product manager doesn't have his or her act together. We got to do something for them. And the way you build forward momentum is simply explaining. So the next thing, to uncover what the problem is, we are talking to 3 customers to figure out what the problem is. Okay, now I have confidence that you have things under control. You know the next step. And even if you didn't exactly know, but you had something like, hey, one idea to fix this is to talk to 3 people. I'm open to other ideas if anybody has them. Now that shows initiative and openness. So the momentum piece is so important when you're giving your product updates. So I hope, if anything you took away from this presentation, if you change your product updates to more follow this format and understand the principles behind it, I think it would have been an hour worth spending. Definitely has changed my career, has changed the career of so many PMs I coach. So just take this one thing away. But we're not done yet. We're gonna talk more. Cool. So now it's the time for the places that didn't go so well, right? So I'm sorry I screwed up that story. And it's actually very similar to the product update story, where when you're apologizing for something, then what you want to do is you want to make sure that the fault is admitted, but you still come out ahead. And the way we do it is this framework. So I'll explain what it is. So I'll explain it with a story. So there was a time when I was a PM for 2 different teams, and Team 1 decided to transition things over to Team 2, and they set a very aggressive timeline for Team 2 to take things over. And Team 2's engineering manager comes to me and says, hey, Shobhit, this is just not fair. We've been given all this work. What's the urgency behind it? It seems like this work is being forced up upon us. And I could have said a lot of things, but I was like, yeah, this person's right. So I said, look, I first stated the intent behind my actions, which is I thought it'd be wise to finish this transition as soon as possible. That way, that first team number 1 would be ready to work more productively. And then acknowledging what was wrong with your actions or thinking. Not what's wrong with you, but with your actions or thinking. Clearly, I was focused on making things great for the team number 1 and did not consider the impact on the team I'm transitioning the work to. Yeah, it was a fault. Everybody makes faults, but it was something wrong with my thinking or actions, not with me. So instead of the aggressive poach, I'm going to come up with a plan that gives both teams more time to transition. And argument diffused, tempers done, problem solved. We're good. Now I could change this around, and instead, I could have been just like, hey, I'm so sorry I did that. But that's putting the blame on you rather than your thoughts and actions. So you're always deflecting it away from you as a person to how you acted in that situation. Very different impression at the end of the day. And then let's go on to the last one, because after that, it's going to be the fun part, which will be the Q&A. So this is the fun conversation of when your CEO or a stakeholder comes and says, why don't we just build feature X? Let's just do that, and you want them leaving thinking that they were heard, but that you are the owner of the priorities and you know the priorities that are right. And you want them to feel that even if the feature was not picked, they would be willing to come back and participate in this process. They'll bring their opinions again. So the way I recommend you to handle this story, or you tell this story, is, so, first of all, you take some time to understand what's the feature, what's the real need behind it. Go through the normal discovery process that a product manager does. But then you stand firm and you say, look, we would love to take this on, but I don't think I can consider it until Q3. And the reason is, as a product, the three things we're trying to do now are A, B, C. I would love to put it under consideration list for Q3, and I'll be sure to reping you to open the discussion. Simple, it's done. Now, it won't always work out, and they might say, no, this is clearly more important. Then you might have to do a escalation, which is, look, I know the priorities, this is what I think should be done, so I'm not changing it. You need to go talk to some other person to escalate this and convince me that it's really not the case. But the core of this situation, the story you're telling, is knowing your product themes, your priorities inside out. Most PMs, they have a laundry list of features without having those themes, those clear narrative points, and that's where they fail. So this is a very good structure to help you navigate this frequent and crucial situation. One of the low points, converting it into a high point, but you got to know your priorities and your things inside out and be able to say A, B, C. This is how we are evolving. So the main takeaways before I open up for questions is that your influence as a product manager depends on you managing your high points and low points, the stories that come with your high points and low points. And the 4 stories you must master are: tell me about yourself, your product update, the case where you made a mistake, and the discussion of why don't we go do this feature now rather than doing all the crap you're doing. And the last thing I want you to take away is the low points are as much as an opportunity to enhance your brand as much as the high points. So I'm Shobhit. Definitely would love to connect with you. Go to LinkedIn, add me, and that way we are connected and going. And with that, I'm going to jump over to questions.
Thank you for the brilliant session, Shobhit. Really great insights. So audience, please go ahead and ask your questions in the Zoom Q&A window, or you can just come up and you can ask the questions live with Shobhit and you can interact with him. But please, let's go on and ask some questions and make the best of Shobhit's time here with us. So I see a few lined up in the Q&A section. Shobhit, if you could see that as well.
Yeah. And I'm going. Do you mind if I take them on? So So the first one is,
yes.
Cool. So first one is, can a person from the burger is, can a person from a commerce and non-technical background become a product manager? Oh, okay, that's a really good question. So yes, absolutely. In fact, some of the best PMs I've met are from a non-technical background. So the way I would look at it is 2 things. So first of all, you as a product manager, really you are the general manager of the product, right? And so, there's technical skills are one level of expertise that you can have, But then the other thing is that you can have leadership skills, domain knowledge, customer empathy, 10 different things to be ahead as a product manager. And you got to figure out where your strengths lie. Might not be in the technical domain, but other cases are just as good. And in fact, I often tell people that, look, if you're relying too much on the technical expertise to do a product role, you're doing the wrong role. I mean, you should be a technical lead or something like that. So if you actually Google Shobhit Chugh technical skills product manager, you will come across an article that I wrote on this. I think the only thing you need to really do is um, be as technical as your customers. So in the sense that if you don't have a technical domain, technical background, debugger, don't become, don't try to be a product manager for a storage network system. I just was trying to think of a very technical thing. Become a product manager for an app. Become a product manager for something where your level of technical skills is as much as your customer has. So I hope that answered your question. Next one is from Venkatray, who's from Boston area too. Cool, good to meet you. And his question is, how important is domain knowledge to get into a PM role? So in most cases, I think it's not important. But some areas, some industries, it is very important. I think healthcare is one industry where the curve for you to get used to really get to a different level, it's going to take forever if you have no background in healthcare. So I think their domain knowledge really matters. But if you, let's say, are trying to get into, B2B software in most cases, or an app that helps you order food online, I don't know, I'm making up stuff. Everybody can think of how to order stuff online. So that's what I would recommend is you need to really be cognizant of the domain you are getting in. So I hope that answers your question. Chitali, do you mind asking your question again? You asked, how can one use the influence in practical scenario? I'm not quite sure what your question is. So do you mind typing it again with some more details, and I can definitely answer it. And then Rohit has a question, which is, I have tried this, but there are people about the third story who would harp on your admission guilt for all the future discussions. How do you improve this person at a higher level? So, Rohit, there will always be some people who you can't do anything about. And you bless them, you thank them for giving you the muscle for dealing with such people in the future, and you don't let them get on your nerves. That's my honest answer about this thing. Most of the times, though, when you're deflecting things to your actions rather than you as a person, things start to improve automatically. So I actually think going down the road of not admitting guilt and trying to paper over the story is one of the worst ways to try to deal with this situation. So the whole goal is to deflect your the focus on your actions rather than to put it on something else. I'm going to take just a break to drink some water, and then I'll keep going. Okay, from Ashish, what is recommended time frame for systematic steps for transition from process to projects to product? I actually don't think there is a time frame or a very clear system. What I believe you need to do as much as possible is start to demonstrate the qualities of a product manager in your current job. And the way you do that is you go talk to your product manager and find out, hey, what is the few things in product that you want to do but never get around to, right? It might be customer research, might be certain grunt work that you're not excited about, just anything. I want to start doing those things. So you take on one thing, then you take on another thing and another thing. And then before you know, you've been doing a substantial amount of work that a product manager would be doing. And now your transition, whether within your company, is obviously so much easier. Or if it's outside the company, you have this story to tell, and it's so much easier. Now, the challenge with transitioning a product is actually not that this recipe is hard, it's that most people don't want to go through the step of doing this work. It's just very blunt and honest. The work of going and talking to your product manager and asking for those things to be done without expecting immediately something in return, of doing that over a period of a few months, taking on more roles, demonstrating that you deserve to be an awesome product manager, networking, keeping things out open within your company for that transition to product, telling people that you want to move into product management. And then if it doesn't work in your company, because it doesn't always, using that same story to transition outside. I mean, I help people tell that story all the time, but you gotta have done the work. And there's no secret sauce. It's just a sequence of taking more and more responsibility, because trust me, there is no product manager in the world who will ever tell you that they have all the time in the world and they just don't need any help. Everyone needs help, and this is your golden opportunity. So I know this is not a like unique or like, oh, magic formula that Shobhit come up with, but I just want to tell you that there's more opportunities than most people think possible. I was just talking to someone yesterday, and she came in and said, "Hey, Shobhit, I've tried everything. It's hard. It just doesn't work." And I'm like, "What have you tried?" Well, I've joined meetups and I've done all these things. I'm like, "No, go do the work. With it, if you're in a tech company, you can do the work." Now, if you're not in a tech company, then what I would suggest, tell people is, one, I help people transition even without being in a tech company if they have some other things. But some of the best ways to transition is to actually transition into a tech company in a different role and then do the same process. It's not hard, but it's going to take time, but most people can do it. Okay, I'm going to jump around for some questions. So one, Vivekanandan asked a question, which is, any practical advice in handling multiple stakeholders who are spread across the globe, where product use differs across business functions and region as well? Yeah, that's a great question. I think the last story, was it the last story, the one about product priority discussions? I think that's still 100% true. But what you need to be open to is just like when somebody comes in with the feature request, on really understanding their context. Then, so actually, I would say two things. So one, really understanding their context, like what's going on in their country or the geography they're responsible for. How does the product usage different? What is their priorities? But then, in such a complex scenario, please leverage your boss, your boss's boss, in helping determine what are the high level priorities. So I find whenever I'm struggling with actually prioritizing, what's wrong is that I don't really have a good sense on what my company's priorities are, what my group's priorities are, and what my business unit's priorities are. Once I have those, prioritizing my own backlog becomes easier. Not easy, but definitely easier. The reason why people are not clear about their company's priorities is, first of all, the company is often not clear about their priorities. So you have to keep drawing it out. But I also get this common question that, hey, I asked my boss and my boss wasn't able to tell me the priorities. And I asked them back, how many times did you ask your boss? Answer is probably once. There is this rule that I read about, is that you must be willing to fail 10 times to achieve something that you really want, right? And most people don't have that threshold for failure. So ask once, ask twice, keep asking without being annoying, give some time between the two until your boss is forced to come up with a clear set of priorities. I've seen things move at various companies, not just Google, because people consider often that Google, everything's working great. Nope, there's also challenges there. But even other startups where things weren't clear, with enough questioning, with enough guidance, able to drive clearer priorities for yourself from your boss. Because the reason why that's important is when you're having these stakeholder conversations, you got to be able to tell them that I was told that my priorities are ABC. If you don't agree, go talk to my boss. No problem with escalation, but this is what I've been told and my hands are tied. Now you have a much more priority set thing that you can use to go chat with those other stakeholders. So I hope that answers the question. Okay, so I'm jumping around. I think I answered some of these questions. So I'm gonna dismiss them. So another one from Saurav is, as a product manager, how to master the art of storytelling such that we are able to connect with stakeholders. I mean, I hope all of these things helped you, Saurav. And just as anything, I would suggest start with something small. Start with steps. Use these stories, and once you're done, definitely send me a message, and I can send you more resources and other ways to master the art of storytelling. But this is definitely one. And then maybe there's a book, I forget the name. I think it's something like Pixar's Secrets of Storytelling or something like that. That is definitely the master level storytelling book. But it's like something that even I haven't mastered, and I don't think I want to necessarily get there because I'm not really doing a movie, but it does have instructional points. So that's something that's useful. So I'll keep going. Okay. How is a product manager perceived when it comes to skill versus domain expertise? Sorry, I'm not able to follow that question. Do you mind asking it again? Very good one. I'm sorry, I'm jumping around because there's a lot of questions, which I'm really glad to have. What should be the metrics that a PM should measure about his career? Oh, that's an awesome question. I don't think I have a great answer to that. I would put, rather than metrics, I'll tell you about 3 areas that I look at. And then you can come up with metrics that are important. So one, the areas that I look at are, first of all, satisfaction dash contribution. Am I clear about how I'm contributing to my team, to the world at large? And is that in line with what I want to be doing? So that's number 1. Number 2 is about growth. And growth could be in terms of skills, but I tell people also measure growth in terms of, did you grow as a PM? Did you get compensated more? Did you get promoted? Did you get the job that you want? Like, all these things are important measures. And I've seen sometimes PMs shy away a little bit, just being like, hey, Shobhit, I'm not so driven by money. But I only care about all these things. And I ask them, oh, okay. Well, in US terms, what if I worked with you for the next 6 months and, you at the end of it got another $100,000 a year in your pocket? Do you think that'd be a thing you would be excited by? They're like, oh yeah, I'll be like ecstatic about it. I'm like, okay, well, there is some money driven here because, money matters and money helps you. Tony Robbins says money amplifies people. So if you're a good person, I give you more money, you'll become an even better person. If you're an awful person, give you more money, you'll become an even more awful person. So that's what it does. So success in whatever terms. So contribution, your career progress as a PM, and then last is growth as a person, growth in terms of skills, growth in terms of how you're handling situations, growth in terms of are you moving in skill set to like the next level. So let's say you got to be a better communicator or got to have more strategic impact. Is that continuing to happen? So I hope that answers that question. I'll take a last one. Let's see. Okay, yeah. So this is about how much interaction and what level of interaction should a product manager have directly with customers? Okay, perfect. So Sunil, if you're not speaking with customers weekly, you're doing something wrong. And if you're at a company, you got to keep fighting to get that interaction. Now, when you're layered by pre-sales and sales, the way you approach that scenario is you figure out how do you add value in that interaction so that you can get in, and then you can build those relationships and have that interaction. So let's say there's a new demo you want to give, or you want to come in as a product specialist for the sales conversation and join this. I mean, normally sales teams love product managers because they're the ones that come across as not super salesy. They add a level of credibility to that sales call. Just all of those things work really well. And so that, even if you're led by sales and pre-sales, you can overcome that. I know that's a theme that I've mentioned a lot, that you can overcome a lot of things that a lot of PMs are giving up. I see that they're giving up in their first go. But the real trick is to try approaching it with a different strategy. First, you said you wanted to come as a product specialist. You build a demo. You do all these other things that are unique that helps you get in touch with customers. And by the way, if you don't manage to, go leave that company, go find another company that will let you talk to customers. And then all these things you did are amazing stories you can tell when you're interviewing. They'll make you stand out anyhow. So the effort never goes wrong. Okay, I know there's a lot of awesome questions, but I'm going to have to stop sharing more. Thank you so much for attending. I'm going to turn it back to Shama to wrap us up.
Thank you, Shobhit. And in view of time constraints, we will have to end the Q&A here. Thank you for the participation, audience. We love the enthusiasm. And for any further questions, please connect with Shobhit over LinkedIn or other mediums like he mentioned. So Shobhit, for the next part of the session, the final one, you will have to help us pick the champion of curiosity. Like I mentioned before, we'll be rewarding the best question with a free digital course from IPL. So please do the honors.
Oh, too much pressure. I'm going to go back.
You could also pick from the unanswered questions, actually. I mean, if you think any of them are good.
Yeah, got it.
There's so many of them.
I think I'm going to pick the last one that I answered. I thought it was really good. Like, what are the metrics that you measure about your career? Really like the long-term perspective from Nageswara Rao. Yep, I got that. So I think that's
right.
Nageshwara. Yep.
Thank you, Shobhit. And Nageshwara, we are going to get in touch with you shortly. And congratulations on winning the free digital course.